guys, if you guys know me, if you've been watching this podcast for any length of time, you know that I don't believe that prestige television started with Game of Thrones. No. I believe prestige television truly began in 2007 with the USA Network and all of the blue sky dramas that go on there. We're talking about Burn Notice, White Collar Psych, what else? Suits, In Plain Sight, Covert Affairs, Necessary Roughness, Graceland, all of these shows that did very, very well. In fact, I posted a video the other day about a guy who talked about coping with the future of America by watching the USA Network. So these are very, very influential shows from their time. But right now, what we're looking at is there is going to be a reboot of Royal Pains. It's a revival, bringing back Mark Feuerstein as the star of the show. He will also be executive producing. And I do believe that you can't go home again. So we're going to get into this, and we're going to talk about it. I just want to go through the article a little bit because it's very short and they get all the details in there.
Well, before you do that, can you just summarize for me, as someone who hasn't watched the OG Royal Pains, what is the magic of it?
So in the show, basically, Dr. Hank Lawson gets fired for choosing to sit. So two people go to the ER at the same time. There's a sick kid and then like a guy who's on the board of trustees for the hospital, and he chooses to help the kid. And the guy who's on the board of trustees dies, and they blackball him from every hospital in New York. And he goes and he starts a concierge medical practice in the Hamptons. Okay. It takes place, I don't know if it was filmed on location in the Hamptons, but all of the aerial shots are of the Hamptons. It's
probably
bright.
In Vancouver.
It's not, I don't think it's in Vancouver. It's bright, it's sunny, it's saturated. And it's light fare. It's not very, very serious. It's in a lot of ways, and we'll get into more of it, it's about the characters themselves. But what's going on right now is that the network is reviving it, and it's going to be brought back to NBC, and that's my first problem with it. Look, I know that the USA Network is actually owned by NBC Universal, so for all intents and purposes, it's the same thing. But it's not the same thing to bring it back and then put it on a different network. They're learning that right now with Suits LA, which has been brought back, and they brought it back to NBC, and the ratings are not good, especially in compared to the actual original Suits that took place on USA Network.
Then what streaming service?
It would be Peacock then.
Okay.
So it will be through co-creator Andrew Lenchewski, and I do believe that's how you pronounce it, and Michael Rausch, who was both executive producers with Mark Feuerstein on the original series. This is like the tagline they're going with. Over a decade ago, Hank Lawson left a hospital to start a concierge practice in the Hamptons. Now, several years later, and searching for a new purpose in life, Hank is about to embark on his biggest project yet. So that's a red flag. It can't take place anywhere other than the Hamptons. It has to take place in the same location. For one, the bright visuals in the locations were a hallmark of the show, and it made you feel like you were transported from whatever cold, crappy place you might have been living, like Minnesota, and you were now someplace warm in the Hamptons in the summertime. And the other reason, if I'm going to go off and get into the commentary part of this early, why this will never work is because the original show took all of the ultra wealthy people, meaning people who could own like enormous mansions in the Hamptons, and it showed them as eccentric and quirky, but generally good-hearted people. And with the discourse in Hollywood right now around the ultra-wealthy, there is no way that this show will not find some way to introduce some type of commentary. Now, they did that in the original show by talking about the locals who live in the Hamptons as opposed to the people who rent or own their summer homes there, which is like a different class of people, meaning like these are the normal people, you and me, the ones who operate in regular tax brackets, and they would interact with these ultra wealthy people, but it was never done in a way that showed them to be awful people. And I don't think Hollywood has the ability to do that in 2025 without making it some form of commentary, even if they try to be lighthearted about it.
You're right. They're obviously obsessed with Luigi Mangione, treat him as a hero, valorize him, and there is this growing spirit of resentment on the left in general, which is still in Hollywood, as ironic as that sounds, because they're all mega wealthy. It's the same spirit in which Gal Gadot recorded her Imagine video. Yeah. And that is so out of touch, but the contradiction hardly bears pointing out, because they're going to continue down this path.
But the thing is a lot of the times, plenty of the ultra wealthy people in that community were portrayed as out of touch, but in an endearing way.
And it's weird because the discourse is about the billionaire class.
Yeah.
In a Bernie Sanders voice, that's my best try at that.
The millionaires and the billionaires.
The people I assume who are portrayed as his clients in the Hamptons are not from the billionaire class. Am I correct?
I mean, they would be in the so they would be in the multi-millionaire class. Yeah. But they don't see a distinction there, not in the way that they think they do.
You're saying the other clients are the upper middle class people who happen to vacation there.
No. So the clients are the ultra wealthy. The people that work in the Hamptons, meaning the ones who work in the shops, who own small businesses. They're portrayed as your average everyday person whose family just happened to own a home in the Hamptons, not the mansions, but the regular, homes there. The rest are the art dealers and the inventors and this and this and that. I remember that the character that the dude from Ezra Miller plays in the beginning, like his grandfather invented the blender or something, which is why they can afford to live in this enormous mansion. That was one of his first roles.
So you think they're gonna put it in LA or something?
No, I think what they'll do.
They didn't state that they're changing the location.
I just worry that they're going to, because they talk about him, taking on a new mission. So they have to bring back Hank and Evan. Evan's his brother, and they have to bring back Divya and Paige, who Divya's their physician's assistant, and Paige is Evan's wife. These were the characters that rounded it out and made it feel special and unique, along with Boris and all of these other characters. And I just don't have the faith that the writing can be as light, as breezy as it was then. And the other reason they should be worried about that is they are doing this right now with Suits LA, and it isn't working out. So Suits, if you guys remember, it was like just after the pandemic, Suits like blew up on Netflix and became like the most watched show on the platform.
Even years after
4 years after the show ended.
It was like 2023, still the most streamed show.
Yep. And they're doing that right now, and the ratings are not good. So it did a 2.7 million live opening for the premiere, 4.7 million in total, and the numbers have gone down since then. And the problem with that is if you look at the other shows that are playing there, like an episode of Chicago Fire, which has been on since the Obama administration, does 8 million.
And Grey's Anatomy is still
still, she will go until the day she dies out of her cold dead hands.
What did she say? She just felt like she couldn't walk away because she doesn't want anyone else to get the credit.
No, she says she doesn't want them to make money off of her, which I can respect.
Because she in a meaningful way made the show what it is.
So here's the other thing. So if you look,
people want Meghan Markle. That's why Suits LA is flopping.
If you look at Suits LA, it's sitting at 39% on Rotten Tomatoes from critics and just 53% from audiences, whereas the original Suits is 87% and 90% respectively between the two. Mm-hmm. So I just don't have any faith that they're going to be able to bring this show back in an endearing way and treat those characters with the same behavior, give them the same behavior that they had before. In the show, Evan was unapologetically greedy, in the sense that he wanted to grow his business and be successful. Not in a bad way. He was just kind of sometimes seen as haphazard, and he put money in possessions before other people around him, and that would be part of the discourse for that. I don't think that they can handle that now and not treat it with something of a more serious tone when it doesn't need to be that. He already did his growing up on the show, and I don't think that I do believe that the lack of success of Suits LA tells us that this isn't really going to be the win that you think it is. It went 8 seasons. That's a lot. The one other thing it has going for it is that it's a revival and not a reboot, meaning that they're not just introducing a bunch of new characters. I guess you could imagine that some people would come back for it. But me personally, I don't have any interest in watching. That would go for any of them. I loved Burn Notice, White Collar. I loved the original Suits, In Plain Sight, Covert Affairs. I don't think if you bring any of them back, I mean, we're talking a decade now. Over a decade since most of these shows ended.
The time has passed, so there's that. Regardless of your reasonable concerns about it getting weighed down with the baggage of our current political climate, the time that this was successful, that time in the culture is definitively over.
Yeah,
and
there isn't
that
that
is a
much,
problem in and of itself.
There isn't that much whimsy in the world anymore.
Right, exactly.
The whimsy is gone. The other thing they could have done, if they were asking me, was like, have you seen how successful The Pitt is? The HBO series, The Pitt. Well, The Pitt stars Noah Weil, who made his bones in TV on ER. So he's playing a doctor again in another show with a different name, right? So maybe you take Mark Feuerstein and you give him another name and you put him somewhere else, tropical, and you try something different.
Wait, what do you prefer? Police procedural or like crime procedural or like a medical procedural? Because those seem to be like the two major formulas.
Yeah. Crime.
Yeah.
Medical. I mean, they're both formulaic in the sense that like you've heard it all before, but like medical stuff is too depressing.
As for the location change that you think is a possibility, I remember I was just crushed to find out that Psych wasn't filmed in Santa Barbara.
No, I mean everything. It was Vancouver.
I was fooled.
Yeah,
I was so fooled by that. They had me hoodwinked.
That's not like the X-Files, which just had to pretend like everywhere in the woods was somewhere in Middle America. They had to pretend that cold Vancouver was Santa Barbara, California.
But I think that creative
Suits was not in L.A. or Suits was not filmed in New York. It was filmed in Vancouver.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
that's surprising.
Yeah.
I think that creative people these days, even ones who created great, successful shows and movies prior, have brain worms such that they are no longer able to make good content anymore. And I've seen this time and time again. Even Tina Fey was involved in the musical reboot of Mean Girls. And she's legitimately hilarious, and I think she's really talented. But she greenlit something and was creatively involved in something that was a train wreck. Something about those people, like the old guard of creatives and producers, they have brain rot.
Yeah.
They have like this worm in their brains where they're not able to do it anymore. They're one-trick ponies.
I think part of that, and also there's back then they would have created before the advent of like massive social media, meaning like they were creating without having to worry about instant feedback. And they could just create, and it just so happens that what they created was awesome.
Well, being on network television was instant feedback enough, wasn't it?
And that's the other thing.
Ratings were feedback enough back then.
Yeah, but the type of person that gives you feedback, is at least watching the show, whereas somebody might be critiquing your story ideas without actually watching it, and you went and it lived and died by whether your audience grew or not. And it's one of those things. I think it was a product of its time. Look, one of the main storylines in the show was about how Divya was supposed to be in an arranged marriage. And they do the most American thing ever where she's been basically betrothed to this gentleman since they were kids, and the whole thing is her basically they're going to get married. You can tell she's reluctant about it. Stuff just keeps going wrong. It's like karma, or it's like cosmic, the world telling them not to do it. Finally, it like ends in like the plague. They end up with the plague before they get married. And she's like, if this doesn't tell us it's not to be, then what is? Then she gets like abandoned by her family. Her father disowns her because she calls off the marriage. And then she has her journey finding herself. And then in the most American story ever, she falls back in love with the guy that she was supposed to be, like arranged to be married to. So it's very American because it's like she ended up with the guy, but it's because she wanted to, not because her dad said it was what she's supposed to do. I don't know if they would even approach that topic these days. Not in the same way.
Too sensitive.
I don't know. It's interesting, but again, I think it'll be about eating the rich, and that's stupid because the rich don't need insurance.
Well, maybe you should at least watch the first episode.
We'll have to wait and see.
Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.